On inCycle this week, Tony Martin talks of a new career direction.
With the victory last year in the Tour de France, it was a big point to say, okay, why not just give it a try.
The Tour of Flanders marks its 100th edition, and we look into the archives at some of its great rivalries. Lars Bohm speaks about his hopes for the cobbled monuments.
Flanders and Roubaix are the races where I want to be good, but the weeks prior to these races, you need to have a high level.
But first, we go to the Women's World Tour to talk to Lizzie Armitstead. The single focus, the fearless move, the iconic shot. Lizzie Armitstead has all the hallmarks of a champion, but she's not a conventional one. This is a champion who gives no credence to the rainbow curse. In her 5 races so far this season, she's won 3. Omloppet Nieuwsblad and 2 Women's World Tour races, Strade Bianche and Trofeo Binda.
I think the pressure's off being world champion, yeah. People have sort of suggested to me that the pressure must be higher, but actually I feel like, well, kind of all the training and work that I put in was validated, and I've proved that I can be the best in the world on the hardest day, so yeah, it's good.
This is a champion who grew up away from traditional cycling circles, one who made a late entrance to the sport, only starting in her mid-teens.
I was talent spotted at school. British Cycling had this new initiative with the London Olympics in mind that they needed to find new talent, and luckily enough they came to my school, and basically a chance to get out of lesson, have a race around the school field, and one lad challenged me to a race, and luckily I took him up on it, and they noticed kind of that competitive spark in me. I'd never considered being a professional athlete, no, but I was in every school team that was going, so I was very sporty, but cycling was the first sport that I thought I could make a profession from. We're not a cycling family at all. Well, we weren't, we are now. My sister, I just bought her one for Christmas because she wants to try and get fit, so she thought she might have some hidden talent too, so we'll see about that.
This is a champion who has forged her own way, breaking out of the British track system to pursue a career on the road and become her own guardian.
I think being self-coached and finding my own path has made me the rider that I am today, definitely. I suppose, yeah, I take on 2 roles. I plan my training and analyse my training just like somebody's coach would. It's just about trust, really. I'm the only person that I trust to do a good enough job. I still have a huge team around me. Just because I'm self-coached doesn't mean that I'm doing this alone. You know, my team, Boels Dolmans, are incredibly strong, and my team manager, Danny Stam's a great influence. He sits down at the start of the season with me and we talk about where I should be winning races and where I should be backing off. And I suppose mentally as well, he can sort of have a look at me at a race weekend and say, Lizzie, you're probably a bit tired, back off next week. I used to have problems with overtraining and being tired and sick in the past, but from those lessons I've learned now to trust my instincts and to trust my body a little bit more. And I suppose when you have a coach, maybe you ignore those signals a little bit more, but when it's yourself, then, you know, if I do feel tired or poorly, I'm not looking at a programme thinking I should have been doing this. I really listen to my body and what it's telling me.
This is a champion who doesn't compromise on principles.
I've been a vegetarian since I was around 10 years old. My mum and dad used to sort of make me eat meat, and at 10 years old they kind of gave in and realised that it wasn't just a phase. Obviously it has its challenges at races and things like that when there's only meat on the menu, and I do have to plan and think about my protein intake, but I have to plan and think about everything as an athlete. I'm from a meat-eating family that are always telling me if I ate a steak I'd be faster, but I think I've proved them, you know, I'm fastest in the world without meat, so I'll do.
This is a champion in a team of champions. Boels Dolmans has claimed all of the UCI Women's World Tour victories to date, with Chantal Blaak winning Ronde van Drenthe and Kent Wevelgem. They belong to a setup that gives them the freedom to train, a freedom not afforded to all of the women in the peloton.
I think if you're trying to be a professional cyclist, then, you know, in every sense of the word, you need to be a professional. You need to earn a living wage so that when you're getting in from training, you don't have to go out to your second job You know, I'm as good as I am, I'm world champion because of the rest that I have and the recovery that I have. I'm totally focused on the bike, and I wouldn't be able to be in this position if I had to sort of juggle it with other things like a lot of the women in the pro peloton have to.
This champion is quite unlike any that's been before. She's a pioneer, an innovator, an anomaly. But she still has that one thing that unites all champions. Lizzie Armitstead is a natural-born winner.
I like to race on instinct, definitely. When I overthink things, that's when things start going wrong. So I think you either have it or you don't, and luckily I think I do have it. I didn't know that I would be world champion at 15, no way. I was rubbish when I first started, really. Cycling just baffled me. All the equipment, all the kit, I just didn't understand it. Even the tactics of racing, it took quite, I'd say, a couple of years before I really understood what I was doing. And then I suppose your goals progress each year, and yeah, a couple of years ago I thought, okay, potentially I have it in me.
Now to our news. Chantal Black claimed her second Women's World Tour race after a courageous solo victory at Ghent-Wevelgem in Flanders fields. The 26-year-old slipped away from a select group of around 20 riders with 10 kilometres still to race. Her second win from 4 races takes her to the top of the Women's World Tour ranking and into the leader's jersey. Meanwhile, Lizzie Armitstead and Emma Johansson round out the top 3. Canyon SRAM's Lisa Brennauer's runner-up finish brings her up into the top 10. In the men's Ghent-Wevelgem, Peter Sagan managed to break the curse of the rainbow jersey. He finished fastest from a breakaway group of favourites, including Sepp von Marke and Fabian Cancellara. In the end, it came down to a 4-man sprint, and the Slovakian proved his worth on the line. The world champion jumps 2 spots to number 1 in the World Tour rankings. Port second, Contador is third. And this week, the sport is mourning the tragic loss of 2 young Belgian talents, Antoine Desmoitiers and Daan Mincher.
Yeah, honestly, it took some while to get thinking about riding the cobbles. With a victory last year in the Tour de France, it was a big point to say, okay, why not just give it a try?
If you see the rider like Tony is, we always thought about one classic that would really suit him. That's Paris-Roubaix, and he came also with. He came to us in the winter and said, yeah, I want to ride all the spring classics. And then you think, okay, we had to think it through, because it's really, yeah, if you see Tony, it's not like you already see him also in the other classics.
Omloop was my first experience in a Belgium classic race.
Tony Martin at the front.
It was like a test, like a lesson for me, but things didn't go so well for me. I crashed in the final on the cobbles in the corner.
But most people, oh, Martin is down. A couple of riders down behind.
I didn't make any result there, or wasn't able to play a role in the front, but still it was worth to go there, and yeah, for sure we'll come back.
He still has to adapt a little bit to the way of racing, because For Tony, many years it was all about TTs and preparing for the bunch sprints. And now he really has to fight every corner to be in position. Not that he cannot do it, I think, because being there in a bunch sprint, and if you say to Tony at kilometer 159 you have to be in the front, he always will be in the front. But yeah, we'll see. But he can count also a lot on his teammates. So
yeah, cobblestone rider is somebody who has a lot of power coming out of the back and the back of his legs as well. So we can put out a lot of power on the pedals just sitting in a saddle. And Tony for sure has that. All-time trial specialists in somehow are able to do well on the cobbles, because the first year is really hard. You have to learn every corner and every cobblestone section and the way they go through it and how the wind will be. So it's a lot to take in on a first year. But he's an intelligent guy and we have a good team supporting him, so I think it will go a little bit faster than in any normal conditions with anybody else.
Tom gave me a lot of advices, telling this part is important, here it's better to go left or to right, to be right, or shift before the corner, so it was really helpful. And I really have to say that the whole team is supporting me really well. Everybody gives me advices. Also Tom Stels makes a really perfect job. He made some videos with the most important parts of the parkour.
once they give him a little bit of room, then he will be very hard to catch back.
Now I'm also ready in the head. I think that's super important. I mean, to know that you're able to do it, but if you don't really want it, it makes no sense. And now I'm really focused on the cobbles. I really want it, and I'm really also happy that the team gave me the chance. And I think with this team, they give me the best support I can have.
For some riders, the cobbles of Northern Europe are a fearsome obstacle to victory or self-preservation. But for Lars Bohm, one rider on stage 5 of the 2014 Tour de France, a rain-soaked day presented a golden opportunity.
Yes, that feeling is hard to describe. It was unbelievable, actually, and very special to win there, especially in that kind of weather, and with all the guys that competed, of course. So looking at all that, it was very special.
Having two classic specialists in the Belkin Tour team, a decision was made to allow them to attack the day instead of riding in support of the team's GC ambitions.
Within the team at Belkin, we made clear that Van Marker and myself have kind of a free role, and we can do whatever we want to do, or at least try, to win the stage in our way. So we didn't have to stay with Bauke or Lawrence, and that was pretty clear to all of us. That was great to know because we could do what we needed to do and had some support of our teammates.
Although the pavé of Paris-Roubaix was present in the Tour, the conditioning for covering a Grand Tour stage and a one-day classic is very different.
Well, that stage was 150 kilometres, I think. And a classic is, of course, easily 200 kilometres, or even 260 kilometres. So that is a big difference. And in a classic race, you're top fit and super motivated. And you start the race really fresh. But in the Tour, you don't have that. There you already have raced some stages. And that is asking a lot of your body, those first couple of days of the Tour. So that is a big difference.
The 30-year-old rode for the same Dutch team since under-23 level. But in 2015, he moved to Astana. To the outside world, it may appear to be a big change, but how different is it really?
I think work-wise, it's all about training. But I think that is a good thing. And I don't think it's always been the same. Of course, the training and that sort of thing is different because we're working with Italian coaches. So, changing to this team, there's not been much difference in my training. What my feeling says, and how the team is looking and acting, it's all really good. They leave me alone as much as possible, so I can prepare myself for the classics without any stress.
Given the experience required to win the biggest of the Northern Classics, that preparation naturally involves racing.
Flanders and Roubaix are the races where I want to be good. But the weeks prior to these races, you need to have a high level. So I think if you race E3 or Genk-Wevelgem, you could be in good shape already. So you have to race for the win there. Otherwise you'll not be ready.
So he has to be ready, but he isn't the only one. The presence of Boom's teammates could be a key factor.
Well, I think that Lawrence de Vreese, for example, have to help me in the later stages of the race. Same thing for Smukelis and the other riders who will race. They need to be sharp from the beginning of the race and be around us so we don't waste a lot of energy.
In the cobbled classics, riders often face treacherous conditions. But while some see a problem, others find an advantage.
Of course, I hope for bad weather during Roubaix, but I actually really don't care because last year, in dry weather, I finished 4th.
The 2015 Classic season saw a new generation of riders tasting success. So in order for Lars to join the elite group of monument winners, he'll have to fend off not only fresh talent, but also experience.
Degenkolb isn't here anymore due to that accident, of course. So I think he will not be racing this year, and he is a really good rider. But there is a large group of riders that are really strong, I think. Cancellara is looking strong at this moment, and Christoph again. And Terpstra, of course, and probably Boonen. So there are a lot of guys who will ride for the win.
So with all that in mind, how prepared is he feeling?
Well, I think I had good preparation because I did Australia, the Cyclocross World Championships, Dubai and Qatar. So I have a lot of race days in my legs, which I had last year as well. Now I will train hard for the next 2 weeks at home to prepare. So looking at this, I think this is good preparation for the Classics.
Chances at glory. In its 99 editions, the Tour of Flanders has bestowed very few. 100 start, 100 suffer, but only one will win. That's why these cobbles, these hills, breed the fiercest of rivalries. Tom Boonen and Fabian Cancellara have defined an era. But with Cancellara retiring this year, these record makers have but one final tussle remaining on the roads of de Ronde. As their rivalry comes to a close, we look back at some of the pairings that have defined the race in the years gone by. Few rivals could compete with Eddy Merckx, but it was a former butcher's assistant named Eric Leman who thwarted his hopes of dominating his home monument. A 73-kilometre solo attack that even his manager pleaded with him to give up saw Merckx win in 1969, beating everyone by the largest margin in Flanders history. He was overwhelming favourite next time, with twice the number of climbs, but sprinter Le Mans was too explosive, leaving Merckx in third. Tragedy struck Le Mans a week before his title defence, when his wife was killed in a car crash. But both Le Mans and Merckx were back at full strength in 72 and 73. First working together, Merckx then pushed on the climbs to lose his rival, who now had 5 Tour de France sprint stages to his name. But opportunist Le Mans held on to take a second Flanders title in 1972 and a record-matching 3 victories in 1973, a feat yet to be beaten. Merckx did claim another Tour of Flanders title, working with Frans Verbeek for 100 kilometres before leaving him stranded. But the Tour of Flanders remains Merckx's worst monument, ruined by a man who dedicated his career to winning it. Roger de Vlaming, the elegant Roubaix specialist, had one of the bitterest rivals in cycling with bullish sprinter Freddie Martens. So deep was their hatred for each other that in 1976 they let themselves both be dropped so as not to see the other win, to the horror of Martens' teammate Mark de Meyer. Walter Plankert won, but de Vlaming wouldn't be upstaged, sprinting for the dubious glory of 4th place. Next year was marred by yet more controversy. Martin struck out ahead of the peloton, changing his bike to have better gears before the Koppenberg. But bike swaps had been forbidden in a meeting that Martin's team failed to attend. Hearing the world champion was disqualified, De Vlaming offered several £100,000 to sit on Martin's wheel. He did this all the way before putting in a token sprint. Martins was later disqualified again for the same race after testing positive for amphetamines. Four-time Roubaix winner De Vlaming never made the podium at Flanders again. In the 90s, Johan Museeuw was known as the Lion of Flanders, but any chance of an outright record for the most wins there would have been spoiled by rival Peter van Petergem. In '93, Museeuw outclassed Frans Maassen. A year later, he was beaten by mere millimetres by Gianni Bugno before winning again in '95. Had he timed that runner-up sprint better, his third win in '98 could have been a record-breaking fourth. Museeuw's best chance came in '99. Despite almost having his leg amputated a year before, Museeuw sprinted against rival Van Petergem and fellow Belgian hero Frank van den Broek. It was Van Petergem's day. Conciliatory revenge was made 3 years on, the pair finishing second and third after missing Andrea Tafi's winning attack. Van Petergem made it back to the top spot in 2003, pulling away on the climb he was born on before beating Van den Broek at the finish. That year, he also beat Museeuw to winning the first Flanders-Roubaix double for 26 years. The Tour of Flanders, where plenty of stories of riders and rivalries are already archived. But the story of who will finish triumphant this time will be decided on Sunday and will be written on the roads. That's all we have time for this week, but join us again soon. Until then, keep up to date with us on social media.